Part 40. Adorable Baby, The Miracle Doctor is So Awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 391. The big bell buzzes, and the rich, clear, and ethereal sound of the bell ripples in circles, and the white cranes that live here will spread their wings and fly. In the faint ringing of the bell, the mountain mist, ancient pines, and white cranes form a beautiful picture, ethereal and full of fairy spirit. It makes those who see it forget about the world, and their souls seem to have been baptized. So many people come here every day. In order to watch this scene, some people will come to the temple to stay in the temple a day or even a few days in advance. Shen Yi knew that there was a Tianzhou, and he took a few people to Zaihe Peak in a few minutes, just in time to catch up. She took out the photo stone, recorded the scene, and sent it to Goosewitting. "Mom, take us to eat something delicious quickly." Qingbao took a step slowly while washing up and failed to get the snack gift package. He was thinking about the delicious food she mentioned along the way. Little greedy cat Shen Yizi scratched his nose. The delicious food is in Lingyan Temple. Most of the pilgrims who come here to offer incense are actually attracted by the delicious food. Shen Yizi felt that the abbot of Lingyan Temple knew how to use his own advantages. Lingyan Temple is built on the hillside. A spring flows through it on the top of the mountain, forming a spring pool on the mountain behind the temple. The water in the pool is extremely sweet and refreshing. The monks in the temple used this spring water to water their vegetables and crops, and the things they grew were extremely delicious, with a hint of sweetness. Coupled with the fact that the monks in the temple kitchen are very good at their craftsmanship, the food they make will naturally taste great. Among them, the tofu buns, cabbage and mushroom soup, and honey juice lotus seeds are the most delicious and are famous far and wide. Many business travelers from outside come here because of its reputation. Shen Yizi and his party entered the temple and first went to the main hall to worship various gods and Buddhas. The gods and Buddhas here are different from those worshipped by people on the mainland, but form their own system. The leading is the well-known lake on Qiandao Lake. He was stepping on a huge conch under his feet, his posture was high, his eyes were shining, and he was holding a trident in his hand. Qingbao looked at it with doubts in his eyes and tugged at Shen Yizi's clothes. "Mother, isn't that Grandpa Qiu?" As soon as these words came out, they immediately attracted the attention of everyone in the palace. Shen Yizi showed no signs of panic on his face and smiled helplessly. "This kid thinks the portraits hanging at home are real people." Hearing this, everyone was stunned and no longer paid attention to the childish words of a child. Qingbao wanted to say more, but Shen Yizi squeezed his hand and winked at him to let him understand. Qingbao was also a ghost, so he immediately shut his mouth. After worshipping the gods, Shen Yizi donated a generous sum of money for incense. The monk guarding the merit box said Amitabha to her and handed her a simple wooden sign. "The donor must be tired after coming all the way, so please come with the poor monk." How can the temple not show its mercy when someone is being lenient? This means that it landed in the vegetarian room of the temple. It is a well-known unspoken rule that if pilgrims donate money for sesame oil, the temple will provide sumptuous vegetarian meals. As for those who are waiting for free prostitution, they still want to eat delicious vegetarian food? Beautiful thought. The monk led Shen Yizi and his entourage to a small courtyard for entertaining guests, invited them to sit down, served tea and snacks, and then went down to pass on the meal. What's rare is that the tea snacks contain the slightest bit of aura. Eating food containing spiritual energy is self-evidently beneficial to people. This is the reason why Lingyan Temple has endured for so long. Shen Yizi tasted it when she came here to eat for the first time and guessed that the spring water was actually a spiritual spring. However, the temple was strictly controlled and the abbot also had some cultivation skills, so she did not investigate in depth. There is no need for it now, after all, there is a real spiritual spring lying in her space. "Mother, the person we worshipped just now was obviously Grandpa Qiu, why didn't you let me tell you?" Qingbao remembered to ask while chewing the bun. This matter was very complicated to talk about, but Shenyazi didn't want to lie to them, so he had to lie. This is a secret. Don't let others know, otherwise Grandpa Chu's magic power will be taken away by God. We all have to keep Grandpa Chu's secret. Oh. Is it so serious? King Bao and King Bao all nodded solemnly. Kuiyu was very curious and wanted to ask more carefully, but was stopped by Kuiyu's eyes. He picked up a steamed bun and put it on her plate. Eat more. This is to make her eat more and talk less. Kuiyu was born into a big family like the Kui family. Although the Wang family intended to raise her, she was not a stupid person who didn't understand anything since she was a child. Her eldest brother made it so obvious that she would naturally not be so stupid anymore. Go ahead and ask, just dig in and eat. After a delicious breakfast, Shenyazi took a few people to visit various places on the island. As you can see from the name, the bright moon on Ziotai can only appear at night, and it is already the 4th day of the Lunar New Year. The moon is not round, so it cannot be called a bright moon, so it cannot be seen yet. The sunset glow of Zizi can only be seen in the evening. So Shenyazi chose the second stop, Yunmen Blessed Land. Then there are the twin waterfalls and flying springs, the clouds on the east peak, and the purple bamboo cave. When we visited the Zizi cave station, it was already noon, and there happened to be a restaurant in the Zizi forest. You can continue shopping after eating. Walking in the purple bamboo forest, Shenyazi found a very familiar figure not far away in front of him. The man was dressed in white, with a fairy-like temperament and a leisurely pace. As he approached, Shenyazi stopped him in surprise. Mr. Zhong. Isn't that man Dr. Zhong Wuki Zhong from Manfaju? She never expected to meet him here. Zhong Wuki was obviously surprised, but he quickly calmed down and showed a gentle smile to Shenyazi. Miss Shen. Zhong Wuki's appearance was so outstanding that Kuiyu couldn't help but take a second look. Sisters Hizi, who is this young master? Shenyazi introduced both parties. After getting to know each other, the two groups of people merged into one place and walked inside together. Mr. Zhong, why are you here? Langcheng is tens of thousands of miles away from here, and Zhong Wuki has no cultivation level. Wait a minute. Shenyazi suddenly discovered that Zhong Wuki was no longer an ordinary person, and had already reached the second level of qi refining. What did he experience during this time? Or have some adventures? Shenyazi suddenly became curious about what he saw on the way from Langcheng to here. Zhong Wuki opened a bamboo branch and said, I couldn't see before. I didn't know what the green mountains, green waters, white clouds, and sky looked like. After your eyes were cured by you, I went out to travel. I wanted to see more about the different folk customs and medicinal materials in different places. Why is Miss Shen here? Shenyazi, this is my hometown. I grew up here, but something happened later and I ended up living in Jiazhuang. In fact, strictly speaking, Kunling Island is her home, but in the eyes of outsiders, Kunling Island does not exist, and she is not easy to talk to others, so she simply regards Sanzu Island as her hometown. I see. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 392. Zhong Wuki said, actually, the main purpose of my coming out this time is to collect medicinal materials from various places, understand their properties, and compile a compendium of medicinal materials. I couldn't do it before, but now that I have the opportunity, I have to seize the time. However, this matter is more difficult than I imagined, and the progress is very slow so far. I have only completed 1/10 of the work. Shenyazi secretly praised in his heart after hearing this. Isn't this the contemporary Li Shizhen? There is no encyclopedia of medicinal herbs in this era, and Zhong Wuki is probably the first person to want to do so and take action. If it is done, it will definitely be a great good thing that will benefit the present and the future. She admired it very much and wanted to do her part. If there is anything I can do to help, Mr. Zhong, just ask. Zhong Wuki didn't refuse, that's exactly what Wuki meant. On the way, the two began to discuss the compilation of the Chinese medicinal canon. In modern times, Shenyazi has a private library with 3 floors. It contains classics from all over the world, most of which are medical books and pharmacopoeias. She has included them all in the book and has also studied them through. So she has full say in the compilation of pharmacopoeia. Zhong Wuki often felt enlightened when he listened to her words. Some of the medicines she mentioned were something he had never heard of before. I wanted to take out a pen and paper and record it on the spot. Along the way, the two of them had a lively discussion and gradually fell behind. Qingbao and others ran to the front. Kui Ying followed him, fearing that some of them would get lost. When they arrived at the place where Shenyazi said they were, Qingbao and the others didn't see the wine shop at all. A few people also searched around separately, but still couldn't find it. Kui Yu ran to Shenyazi and said, "Sisters Hizzy, we didn't see the wine shop you mentioned." Zhong Wuki said, "I heard that the owner of this wine shop has a very weird temperament. Whether he can open it or not depends on his mood. If he doesn't want to open it, no one will be able to find the location of the wine shop. It seems that we are not very lucky today, and we happen to meet him. It's time for him to be in a bad mood." Shenyazi, shit, that guy must be drunk and hasn't sobered up yet. Follow me. She knew the owner of the wine shop very well. After all, they had a relationship where they drank together and got into trouble. The location of the wine shop is actually right in front of you. The reason why everyone can't see it is just that it is covered by the formation. Led by Shenyazi, an acquaintance, the group successfully passed through the formation, and a 2-story bamboo building appeared in front of them. A wine flag was hung on a bamboo pole upstairs, swaying in the wind. There is a fence made of bamboo strips outside, enclosing a medium-sized yard. Inside, a few big white geese are patrolling their territory leisurely and with their heads held high. When he saw Shenyazi and his group, he immediately turned his neck and rubbed his flippers on the ground, as if he was ready to attack at any time. Kui Yu said, "These big white geese look so fierce." Those big white geese seemed to understand, squawking and rushing over. With their elongated necks and flat bright red beaks, they shoveled over like shovels. Shenyazi didn't panic at all. He scattered a handful of spiritual rice like a goddess scattering flowers. With food first, the geese's attack was disrupted and they hesitated for a moment. They decided to eat first as a sign of respect. The big white goose that was pecking at rice naturally couldn't distinguish its mouth from pecking at people. Shenyazi and his people successfully passed the white goose cordon and entered the bamboo building. A strong smell of alcohol hit my face. But no one saw one. Shenyazi walked behind the counter, and sure enough, the owner of the wine shop, Sima Xiao, was sleeping soundly with a wine jar in his arms. There were still some wine drops on the beard on his chin that was as lush as a weed. After all these years, his habits remain unchanged. How to wake up an alcoholic? Of course, bring out better wine. Shenyazi took out a jar of sorghum wine that had chiquin added to it at the beginning of brewing. This wine has been buried in space for nearly a year, and the liquid has turned into a semi-viscous ointment, as transparent as amber. If you want to drink it, you have to add water or lighter wine to mix it. Otherwise, if you just drink a glass, you will be drunk to death. But such high alcohol liquor is Sima Xiao's favorite. Like other flower wines and fruit wines, they are not strong enough in his opinion. Shenyazi opened the wine jar, and a wine mist suddenly filled the air. If she hadn't changed her external breathing to internal breathing in time, she would have been hit by the wine mist and fell down. In the lobby, Kui Yu couldn't stand the smell of wine, so she took Qingbao and others to the yard to play with the big white goose. Sima Xiao shrugged his nose and sniffed at the wine jar in Shenyazi's hand without even opening his eyes. Shenyazi smirked and stepped back step by step, hooking him and slowly crawling out from behind the counter. At the same time, he recorded the section with a photo stone. Ha 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 ha, wait for Sima Xiao to wake up and show him, I wonder what his expression will be. It's interesting to think about it. After the temptation was almost done, Shen Yizi sealed the wine jar. Sima Xiao woke up immediately and looked around. Where's the wine? Where's the wine? Shen Yizi looked at him like this and clicked his tongue twice. Old Xiao, we haven't seen each other for only 4 years, how come you have made yourself look so sloppy? You are more than 10 years older. Sima Xiao is actually not old, he has not yet reached his 30s, but he is only 8 or 9 years older than Shen Yizi. However, when they first met, the two often bickered and even gave each other nicknames. Sima Xiao is Lao Xiao, and Shen Yizi is Xiao. When they meet each other, they don't even call each other by their names. Instead, they call each other Lao Xiao and Xiao Ya, deliberately insulting each other. When they met again, Shen Yizi's resentment factor became more active than ever before, and he insulted Sima Xiao when he opened his mouth. She was still waiting for Sima Xiao to reply, but he stared at her blankly for a while, then rushed over and hugged her leg. You heartless person, you have been gone for 4 years, I waited well, it's hard work. Shen Yizi, Kui Ying and Zhong Wuqi, who were watching the whole process. Pinch me. Sima Xiao stretched out his arm in front of Shen Yizi. He still couldn't believe that Shen Yizi appeared in front of him like this. He thought he might be hallucinating when he was drunk, or maybe he was dreaming. Shen Yizi pinched him hard without politeness. Sima Xiao screamed in pain. Nearly jumped up. But it also confirmed that the person in front of me was real and not my own imagination. Thinking of his current unkempt appearance, Sima Xiao ran upstairs at lightning speed. Kui Ying was a little shocked by his unreasonable behavior, madness, and stared blankly at the direction in which he disappeared. Shen Yizi waved his hand and asked them to sit down. Leave him alone, he just has such a personality. After a while, Sima Xiao, who had shaved, taken a shower, and changed clothes, appeared in front of a few people again. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 393. Looking at Sima Xiao, who looked completely different from the other, Shen Yizi looked him up and down. Sima Xiao coquettishly brushed up a strand of long hair that was specially left in front of his forehead. How about it? Isn't he so handsome that you can't recognize him? Shen Yizi was amused. Okay, stop being coquettish here and hurry up and cook. We are all hungry. Come here and help me. Sima Xiao walked to the kitchen and pulled her to be a strong man without any courtesy. After entering the kitchen, Sima Xiao directed Shen Yizi to come. The fish kept in the water tank was picked up and disposed of. Go outside and chop a purple bamboo of suitable thickness. Go to the yard and catch a goose. If someone else dared to order her like this, Shen Yizi would teach him how to behave in a minute. But who called this man Sima Xiao? He is the only one who can conquer her in cooking. If the cooking skills are divided into levels, she can reach level 3, and the deliciousness of the food she cooks will naturally be 3 stars. With the blessing of the ingredients in the space and the artifact of the eternal burning cauldron, it can reach 4 stars or 4.5 stars. However, Sima Xiao doesn't rely on anything. Even ordinary ingredients can reach the level of 4.5 or even 5 stars with the help of his skillful hands. He is a man favored by the god of cooking. She can't compare to this, because her talent is not focused on cooking. Her current cooking skills were all developed through love. So in the kitchen, she obeyed him. Thinking that she would soon be able to eat his delicious food, it was nothing for her to do some work. After getting the fish and bamboo in place, Shen Yizi came to the yard and prepared to catch the goose with his bare hands. In the yard, Qingbao squatted by the hawksbill turtle basin and looked at his precious fish. Yuanbao walked slowly with his hands behind his back like a little researcher, seeming to be studying the terrain. Nian Nian was riding on a big white goose. Drive. 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 Run faster dash. The three children have each found their own happiness. Shenyazi scanned the group of geese. Well, the one squatting on the stone mill is neither fat nor thin, with smooth and graceful lines. He must have exercised a lot, and the meat must be very firm and delicious. That's you. Perhaps sensing her death gaze, the chosen big white goose started to cause trouble. It flapped its wings and sank into the group of geese, trying to confuse the audience and perfectly hide itself inside. It's a pity that it is too naive and does not know Shenyazi's strength at all. She threw a confinement talisman over, and the goose was frozen in place, unable to move or speak, as if it had become a goose statue. The geese next to me thought a fake goose had wandered in, so they pecked it several times. When they saw that it didn't respond, they pecked even more vigorously. Shenyazi became anxious when she saw it. This was the goose she had chosen to make delicious food. What if they pecked it to bits? A handful of spiritual rice was scattered again. The geese have all gone to grab the food, so how can they care about the fake goose? Shenyazi walked over and picked it up easily. Just as he was about to go back to the kitchen, Qingbao suddenly called out, "Mom, come and see. Little Peanut has laid an egg." "What is the meaning of small peanut eggs?" Shenyazi leaned over and saw a round object the size of an egg lying in the basin. It was white with light brown. At first glance, he really thought it was an egg. She picked it up and looked at it. "Is it really from a peanut?" "Yeah, I saw it with my own eyes. A fish actually lays an egg. This is unscientific." Shenyazi put the egg away and planned to study it carefully at night. For Shenyazi's sake, Sima Xiao rarely cooked a large table of dishes. Beggar fish, drunken goose, bamboo fungus and winter melon ball soup, fried bamboo shoots with mushroom oil, braised bamboo rat, braised fish maw with crab roe, and braised clams. The clam is a kind of shellfish that grows in shallow coastal areas. Its shell is covered with neat radial grooves. People here also call it corrugated. Its shell can be used as medicine, and its meat is rich in nutrients. It also has the functions of nourishing blood, strengthening the stomach, sobering up, and resolving phlegm. With the boiled clam boiled with wine? Sima Xiao just fried a plate of it and ate it while drinking. The staple food is bamboo tube braised rice. The rice grains are wrapped with braised shrimp, bacon, crab sauce, green beans, and shiitake mushrooms. Each rice grain fully absorbs the sauce. When you open it, the aroma is so fragrant that it makes you feel so good. "Come on, everyone, sit down and eat." Sima Xiao was not polite to them, so he sat down first. Shenyazi glanced at it and said, "Hey, why is there no wine?" Sima Xiao glanced at her and said, "I have to ask you." He was awakened by the fragrance of the jar of wine she brought out, but when he saw her, he was so shocked that he forgot about the wine for a while. "After cooking a meal, won't you wake up?" How could Shenyazi not understand what he meant? He immediately contributed the wine. "This jar of wine is very strong. You can drink it yourself." While we drink from this jar, she took out another jar of lighter and more refreshing fruit wine. A group of people here are eating and drinking happily, but on the other side, the Xia mansion is gloomy and gloomy. Shuangqing Pavilion. The courtyard where Xia Yan lives. She got up from a nap, rang the bell on the bedside, and the maid came in with a basin to serve her. Walked to the bed, bent down to put down the basin, and looked at her. "Miss." Before he finished speaking, he suddenly let out a frightened scream, "Ah! Ghost!" The basin in her hand hit the ground with a clang, and water splashed everywhere, but the maid didn't care about it and ran out in a mess. The person disappeared in a flash. Xia Yan just woke up, Her head was still a little dizzy, and she couldn't react for a while. When he realized what the maid had done, his anger surged in his heart. How dare this wretched maid? She stood up suddenly and kicked the basin over, but she forgot that she had not put on her shoes yet. Her toes came into direct contact with the copper basin, and her face was twisted in pain. She bent over and hugged her foot and gasped in pain. Inadvertently I caught a glimpse of the face reflected in the copper basin. The bumps are full of pustules, large and small, like toads. Ah, ghost, she screamed in the same frightened voice as the maid. The maid ran out all the way, alarming many people. The mistress of the Xia family and the controller of the entire backyard, and she, the biological mother of Xia Yan and Xia Ben, quickly got the news and rushed to her daughter's yard. Yan Yan, mother has already punished the maid who talked nonsense. It's okay, the injury on your face will be healed soon as long as you apply medicine, just like before. As MRSN walked towards Xia Yan, she comforted her softly. However, Xia Yan always sat on the ground with his back to her. Seeing her devastated look, MRSN became even more angry at the maidservant. She felt that the punishment was too light, it was just 2 scars, and she actually said that her naughty temper was a ghost. Get up quickly, the ground is cold. Angshi put her hands on Xia Yan's shoulders and tried to pull her up. Mother. Xia Yan slowly turned her head with a cry in her voice. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 394. Angshi looked at the face in front of her, her heart stopped beating for a moment, then she let out a short scream, rolled her eyes and fainted. Xia Yan. It was under such circumstances that Sima Kuang came to visit. Xia Bai had already ordered the concierge that if Sima Kuang came again, he would be sent away directly and not allowed to come in. As for what he said, the concierge naturally followed the imperial edict and carried it out without any discount. So when Sima Kuang came to the door this time, he couldn't even get in through the Xia family's door. This is completely different from the previous situation where we were very popular and the service was considerate. The gap was so big that Sima Kuang found it difficult to accept it for a while. In the past, Xia Yan would not come even if he begged him to come, but now he turned him away. What a good job Xia Yan did. Although he doesn't come here rarely, if the matter of yesterday's slap is not resolved, his life will be difficult in the future. Moreover, he also wanted to let Xia Yan take the initiative to bear the huge loss of 2,000 spiritual stones. Today, he had to see Xia Yan no matter what. Please tell Miss Xia, please. At his signal, the attendant behind him stepped forward and handed a purse to the concierge. Xia Bai happened to see the scene when he came back. Hey, isn't this the third young master of the city lord's mansion? How come you have the time to come to our Xia mansion? You are so noble and humble, you really make our Xia mansion shine, haha, don't you think so? The followers behind Xia Bai immediately agreed and through skills such as pointing to the mulberry and scolding the Sephora Grove and innuendo at Sima Kuang. Sima Kuang felt deeply humiliated. Take a deep breath and swallow it for now. When the day comes, he will definitely pay it back 1,000 times. It was my fault for what happened yesterday. I came here specifically to apologize to your sister today. Mr. Xia, I hope you will be accommodating. Sima Kuang felt that his attitude had been extremely low. However, in Xia Ben's opinion, there was no sign of apology on his face. WTF? Apologize? Are you sure? Xia Bai walked over and opened the gift box held by Sima Kuang's entourage. Such a small pearl is not even qualified to be set on my sister's shoes. Isn't this hairpin too insincere? My maid doesn't even bother to wear it, but you still hold it up and give it to my sister. Is this abalone? You treat our Xia family as beggars, and you have the nerve to give away such a lousy thing. Xia Bai criticized them all. In short, in his opinion, none of the apology brought by Sima Kuang was sincere. Sima Kuang clenched his fists tightly and wanted to rush over and knock him to the ground several times, beating him until his parents didn't recognize him, but his reason stopped him. At this moment, a man ran out of the house in a panic, without even bothering to pay homage to Xiaoben. "Hey Feng Yu, where are you going?" Xiaoben called him. Feng Yu said anxiously, "Young man, go ask the doctor." "Miss, she." Noting that this was outside, he could only say vaguely, "The situation is not good, madam was frightened and fainted." "What? My mother fainted from fright." Xiaoben immediately ran inside. How could he care about his boss, Ma Kuang? Sima Kuang's eyes flashed and he followed suit. The concierge couldn't do anything to him directly, so he could only watch him go in. "Mother," Xiaobai rushed into Xuangqing Pavilion and saw Mrsan sitting by the bed crying. He walked over and said, "Mom, I heard that my sister's condition is not good." "What's wrong?" Shi wiped her tears with a handkerchief and said, "Your sister." Before she could finish her words, tears flowed down again. Sima Kuang walked in and said, "Auntie, what's wrong with Yan Yan?" When An saw him, she lost her previous enthusiasm. No mother could have a good impression of someone who slapped her daughter in public. She said in a cold tone, "You called me Yan Yan too?" "Third young master, my family is Yan Yan, it doesn't matter. It's better to be more careful in the future. Besides, don't worry about the naughty things. Coral, let's see the guests off." How could Sima Kuang be willing to be driven away before anyone even saw him? With a cruel heart, he knelt down directly in the direction of the bed. "Hey, Miss Xia, I really didn't mean what happened yesterday. You can hit or scold me without any complaints. I just hope you don't hold your anger in your heart." "Bored myself." Sima Kuang himself was moved by himself. It's a pity that An and Xiaoben looked on with cold eyes, even with ridicule in their eyes. Xia Yan hid under the quilt, her mind confused. At one moment, she was reminded of the slow play scene of Sima Kuang waving his hand and slapping her yesterday, and at another moment, his words of admitting his mistake were echoing. He must have really unintentional, right? After all, they had grown up together, so how could they attack a woman they had only known for a few days? "You go back first, I'll find you in a few days." Xia Yan, who had no response to An just now, couldn't help but speak out to Sima Kuang. "It's just that the quilt is still tightly covered, with no gaps exposed. How can he see her looking like this?" Unfortunately, from Sima Kuang's point of view, she was deliberately hiding from him. A sinister look flashed in his eyes, and he slowly got up from the ground. At this moment, the doctor came. Suddenly no one could care about him. "Yan Yan, the doctor is here, come out and show the doctor a look." Shi tried to lift the quilt. Xia Yan thought Sima Kuang had left, so her hand holding the quilt was not so firm. Although she doesn't want others to see her like this, how can the doctor treat her if she doesn't? The moment her face was revealed, even a well-informed doctor could not help but be shocked. "Ms. Xia, is she possessed by a toad? Horrible." But as a doctor, he must be steady. The doctor calmed down and felt Xia Yan's pulse. Sima Kuang, who was standing aside and secretly watching, quietly stepped forward to see what Xia Yan was like now and why even the doctor looked so frightened. Xia Bai recovered from the shock and noticed that Sima Kuang was still there and tried to peek at Xia Yan. He frowned and forcibly took him out. After checking the pulse, the doctor shook his head helplessly when he met the hopeful eyes of An and Xia Yan. "I'm sorry for my poor medical skills, but I can't tell what Miss Xia's symptoms are." The maid sent the doctor out. Shi touched Xia Yan's hair comfortingly. "Don't worry, Yan Yan, there will always be someone who can cure you." After that, the Xia mansion invited several doctors one after another, almost all the famous doctors in Yufuxing City. That night, the first doctor who was invited to see Xia Yan suddenly felt itchy. When he scratched it, he felt something was wrong. Why were there so many bumps on his body? When I pressed it, it was still a little soft, and something seemed to flow out. The doctor's heart skipped a beat. He stood up and turned on the lamp. He opened his clothes and took a look. He saw numerous pustules densely scattered all over his body. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 395. Old man, what are you doing so late at night? The wife turned over on the bed, revealing a face full of pustules, and some pustules even burst due to squeezing. Under the swaying lights, the level of terror is close to 5 stars. The doctor was so frightened that his legs weakened, he hit the table and knocked over the lamp. The same thing happened not only in their home, but also in many other homes. Kunling Island. Shen Yazi is studying the egg laid by the little flower. This egg is very light in texture. Although it is the size of an egg, it weighs less than 1/3 of an egg. Scrape off some fine particles, put them on your fingertips and rub them carefully. They will be very fine and have a little luster. To fully understand it, she even tasted it. You should know that this thing is probably the excrement of small flowers. For the sake of science, she can be regarded as very sacrificial. Of course, the key to her courage to try is that this thing smells faintly. The taste is slightly bitter and then sweet. Listing all the traits together, Shen Yazi had a sense of déjà vu as if he had seen them somewhere before. Ah, she remembered. Fish treasure, this is the fish treasure she has been looking for. Shen Yazi was afraid of making a mistake, so she bought an appraisal ball. The result proved that she was right. And the age of this fish treasure reaches 380 years. No wonder Zhang Yuchun said that she had good luck, and Shen Yazi had to admit this. First, a female monkey sent Guki to repay her kindness, and then a domesticated fish gave birth to Yubeo. 2 of the 3 medicinal materials she was looking for came into her hands. But having said that, Yubeo is a stone-like medicinal material produced in the stomachs of carnivorous fish, and it cannot be formed in a short time, but requires a long time to gestate. The little flower is only a few days old, so it is unlikely that this fish treasure was born in its belly. Then where did it come from? Shen Yazi thought about Xiaohua's experience in the past few days. If there was anything special, it was that he ate Xia Yan's huge fighting fish in that fish fighting competition. There was nothing left but bones. So this fish treasure most likely came from the stomach of the white real fish. It was swallowed whole by Xiaohua and then expelled as a foreign body. After clarifying the series of complicated relationships, Shen Yazi felt depressed. After all, this fish treasure is no longer a pure fish treasure. But it is still very satisfying to be able to obtain a qualified fish treasure so easily. Shen Yazi kept the fish treasure well and put it into the space. Just as she was preparing to make something delicious to celebrate, she received a message from Kuiyu using the image stone. Sisters Hizi, a plague has broken out in Yafukan, many people have been infected, and now only people are allowed in and out of the city. Shen Yazi was horrified. Plague. Are you and your brother okay? No, we haven't gone out much in the past 2 days, and now we are hiding at home and dare not go out. That's good, just stay at home and don't go out. I'll go over and take a look. Shen Yazi walked out of the yard, thought for a while, and then turned towards the stone pavilion. Uncle Chiu, I received news that a plague broke out in Yafukan. Chiu's Hongai's expression was solemn. Well, this time the plague came fiercely and spread very quickly. It was first reported from Xia Yan in the Xia mansion. All the doctors who treated her were infected, but he didn't know that after leaving Xia mansion, these doctors treated people again, and the patients came into contact with their families. In just 1 day, most of the people in Yafuxing city were infected. He left a trace of his spiritual thoughts in each of the statues and was able to sense the demands of the believers, so he was very clear about the situation in Yafuxing city. But precisely because it is clear, it becomes increasingly difficult. Shen Yizi couldn't help but wonder, didn't plagues generally have a dormant period? Why did they break out so quickly this time? And this method of infection is also a bit scary. Just by having contact, you are 100% infected. Dad, Uncle Chu, I plan to go to Yufukan to have a look. No, the two of them said in unison, with a firm attitude. What's not working? Zhang Lingch happened to be returning from the sea with Qingbao and the other three, each carrying a bucket full of seafood. Shen Yizi asked Yu Chaim to take the three children aside to play, and told him about the plague outbreak in Yufukan. Chu's Honggaya said, I feel that this plague is a bit unusual. I know you must not rush in just because you are a monk. What if even the monks can't resist it? Shen Jiangan agreed very much with this. For him, nothing is more important than the safety of his precious daughter. To put it bluntly, what if all the people in the city died? So what if the people's belief in the lake god is greatly reduced as a result? Those are not as important as a hair of his Yubeo. However, Zhang Lingch expressed a different opinion. Xiaoji is not as weak as you think. When the time comes, I will enter the city and build a protective barrier around myself to isolate myself from the outside world. I don't believe that the plague can still be contracted. Moreover, don't you think this plague is a good opportunity? The acquisition of wish power has entered a bottleneck period. If the plague can be solved, the people's faith in the lake god will be greatly enhanced. Shen Yizi kept nodding in agreement. Yes, Dad, I can do it. You can be so stupid. Just stay on the island and you are not allowed to go anywhere. Shen Jiangan showed his father's majesty. Zhang Lingch still wanted to speak, but Shen Jiangan stared back. Shen Yizi secretly exchanged glances with him and stepped out with a look of helplessness on his face. The two of them communicated spiritually. Shen Yizi, Master, let's sneak out. Zhang Lingch, this entire island is under your father's control. Do you think you can really sneak out? In the past, he deliberately manipulated you. This time he is determined not to let you go to Yufukan. You'd better not think about it. Shen Yizi, but there are so many people in the city, I can't just sit back and watch. Let's not talk about whether we can solve the plague. At least we have to do our part. Besides, she is not bragging. If her medical skills, coupled with so many elixirs and medicinal springs in the space, cannot develop an antidote, then probably no one can. So she had to go this time. Zhang Lingch, okay, then I will accompany you to go crazy again. I know there is a loophole in the island's barrier. If you go out from there, even if you know about it, I won't be able to stop you. Shen Yizi silently gave him a thumbs up. As a result, Zhang Lingch rolled his eyes. Come on, don't compliment me now. I just hope that when the big brother wants to beat me, you can have some conscience and stop watching the joke. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 396. Master, I am that kind of person. You are, Zhang Lingch said coolly. Whenever she got into trouble in the past, she didn't blame him. His name is Master, but he is actually the one who takes the blame and deals with the aftermath for her. In the end, the matter was exposed. The elder brother couldn't bear to do anything to her, so he beat himself up. Instead of helping to plead for mercy, this girl even gloated about her misfortune and added insult to injury. He has finally seen through her. But, who said that he had watched this girl grow up? Who told her to have a sweet mouth and be able to coax people? Even if he sees her true face clearly, he will still be deceived by her next time. Thinking of all the bitterness in the past, Zhang Lingch couldn't help but shed tears of sympathy for himself. But the actions are still very positive. Took Shen Yizi to a cliff by the sea. Okay, this is it. Zhang Lingch formed a hand seal and struck it into the void. A transparent barrier emerged, with colorful runes on it scurrying around flexibly like tadpoles, without any trace of order. Under his operation, a gap appeared in the barrier. Let's go. Shen Yizi's body turned into a stream of light and jumped out from the gap. Zhang Lingch followed closely behind. Master, why are you here too? Humph, how can you rest assured if I don't follow you? Zhang Lingch acted very arrogantly. But actually, he didn't want to stay and bear Shen Jianghan's anger and beating. What the two of them didn't know was that their escaping from prison scene was actually witnessed by Shen Jianghan. Qiu Konggaya, you say one thing and do another. You refuse to let Ji go out, but in fact you can't help but comply with her wishes. Shen Jianghan snorted angrily, what are you still doing here? Yafukan is almost gone, why don't you think of a way to solve it quickly? When Qiu Konggaya also left and he was the only one left in the pavilion, he looked at the sky, with a touch of melancholy on his side face. Grandpa, my mother is missing. King Bao and the other three came running over whistling. Your mother went to the sea to catch big fish. When she comes back, we will have something delicious to eat. Shen Jianghan opened his arms and took the three little guys into his arms. Hearing this, the three of them immediately felt relieved and looked forward to the delicious food. Do you want to play mahjong? Shen Jianghan asked. Think, three crisp voices came together. They saw the adults having fun before and they wanted to play too, but their mother didn't allow it. They can only watch with envy. Now that mother is not here, can they play secretly? Come, Grandpa will teach you. The four of us, grandfather and grandson, fit together at the same table. Shen Jianghan arranged it happily. Asterisk. In just a few days, Yafukan lost its previous liveliness and prosperity and became deserted and withered. Most of the shops on the street were closed, and there were no pedestrians, only patrolling city guards. Turning around a street, Shen Yizi saw a child who had sneaked out and was forcibly taken back by an adult. You kid, you told me not to come out. What if you get infected by the epidemic? Take a walk, come home with me. The child's eyes were wide open, filled with confusion. Shen Yizi sighed inwardly, and he and Zhang Lingch went to the house in Kaibao Hutong to check on the Kui Ying brothers. They were relieved when they saw that they were fine. Fortunately, no one in the house contracted the disease. She left a lot of food and medicine, told them to stay at home well, and then went to Xia Mansion. As the source of the epidemic, Xia Yan must first go and see her condition. The main door of Xia Mansion was closed, even the corner door was closed. Dirty water was splashed on the door. There was a mess in front of the door. There were piles of feces, rotten vegetable leaves and other garbage. The stench was overwhelming and flies were buzzing, making it unsightly. These were done by those who were infected with the disease or their family members. If it had been before, who would have dared to act so arrogantly in front of the Xia family? They didn't even dare to speak loudly when passing by. But who said that the epidemic spread from Xia Yan? Xia Yan is the god of plague. He is a sinner who has brought harm to the people in the city. Fear caused the people to blame everything on Xia Yan. If the gate wall of Xia Mansion had not been strong and well defended, those who had lost their minds for fear of death would not have been able to break in and do whatever they wanted. Xia Mansion did not respond to the various behaviors of the people outside. It only closed the door tightly and isolated itself from the world. Shen Yizi shut down his sense of smell and barely found a place to stay. He knocked on the door for a long time before someone removed a small baffle on the corner door and looked out. The Xia Mansion has closed its doors to welcome guests recently. Please go away and stop knocking. Just as the man was about to close the flap, Shen Yi knew, I have a way to cure your young lady's illness. Xia Zhangxiang, the head of the Xia family, was feeling very anxious. His first reaction after hearing what the concierge said was disbelief. What? She said there is a way to cure Yan Yan's disease. So many doctors in the city are helpless against Yan Yan's disease, and they have even been infected. Now, some people say they can cure her? Xia Zhangxiang felt that the girl was either talking nonsense or had some agenda, but she dared to come to the door at the risk of being infected. Even if she had an agenda, he admitted it. Invite people in. When Shen Yizi and Zhang Lingch were brought in by the concierge, Xia Zhangxiang couldn't help being surprised by their appearance. He felt a similar aura from the two of them. That was the reaction of fellow monks. However, he couldn't see through their cultivation level, which only meant that both of them were above him in cultivation level. At the same time, I felt that Shen Yizi looked familiar, but I couldn't remember where I had seen him before. Combining her medical skills, Xia Zhangxiang had a guess: could the girl come from a sect of immortal medicine? Hearing the words immortal doctor sect, something quickly flashed through Shen Yizi's mind. No, I'm just a casual cultivator. After a brief exchange of greetings, Xia Zhangxiang took Shen Yizi to Shuangqing Pavilion. All the people in Xia Mansion who were infected with the epidemic were gathered here. Fortunately, Shuangqing Pavilion is large enough, otherwise it would not be able to accommodate it. There were more than 500 people in the Xia Mansion. Over the course of one night, more than half of them were infected. The proportion of people infected with the disease in the city is even higher. It can be seen that the plague spread quickly and widely. Xia Zhangxiang stopped when he reached the entrance of the courtyard. He watched Shen Yizi and the others walk in, stood there for a while, and then left with a long sigh. There was a dead silence in the courtyard, and even the originally fresh and beautiful flowers and plants were covered with a layer of gloom. With a sweep of his consciousness, Shen Yizi took in all the scenes in the courtyard and stepped into Xia Yan's house. The room was dark, the windows were closed, and the smell in the air was not very good. Shen Yizi walked over and opened the window, letting in the sunlight and fresh air. Just as a ray of setting sun shone in front of the bed, Xia Yan, whose head was dizzy and her body was hot, seemed to be aware of it. She turned her eyes, but couldn't open them. She cursed in her heart: didn't she say she wasn't allowed to open the window? Those servants are really getting more and more disobedient. When she recovers, a new batch must be brought in. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 397. Xia Zhangxiang kept his mouth shut to people in the house and was not allowed to tell her about the plague, so Xia Yan didn't know that the outside world had been turned upside down because of her. Shen Yizi came to the bed. Even though she was well prepared, her heart skipped a beat when she saw the person lying on the bed. If she hadn't known that the person in front of her was Xia Yan, she really wouldn't have recognized him. This plague was so terrible that it changed her beyond recognition. Looking, hearing and asking. Shen Yizi first carefully observed Xia Yan's symptoms and found that this was not any kind of plague she knew. Therefore, she could not treat it based on experience and could only start from scratch. In view of Xia Yan's current situation, she directly skipped the third step and began to take pulse. How is it? Zhang Lingch couldn't help but ask when he saw that she didn't take back her hand for a long time. I feel that this is not a disease, but a poison. Poison. The two of them looked at each other and saw the solemn look in each other's eyes. If it is really poisonous, it is man-made, not a natural disaster. I need to confirm again. Shen Yizi went to see other patients, and after obtaining the consent of a maid, he did some simple experiments on her. It turned out that what they were infected with was indeed a kind of poison. This kind of poisonous insect is extremely small and invisible to the naked eye. Only spiritual consciousness can detect it. Once it comes into contact with human skin, it will burrow in and multiply wildly. Those pustules that appear on the patient's body are actually breeding grounds modified by the worms for better reproduction. After being invaded by this kind of poisonous insect, the human body will go through 3 stages. The whole body is covered with pustules. Fever followed by symptoms of headache, dry throat, and loss of appetite. This process will probably last 2 to 5 days. 5 days later, the patient will be tortured to death by the poisonous insects. Shen Yizi imagined that scene and was secretly frightened. Those poisonous insects are hidden in the blood vessels of the human body. Unless all the blood in the body is drained, it is impossible to remove all the poisonous insects from the body. However, once a person's blood is drained, isn't it a dead end? After leaving Xia Mansion, Shen Yizi kept thinking, what was the purpose of the person behind doing this? Is it because of a dark psychology that you want a newspaper? Where are you going? Zhang Lingch couldn't help but ask when he saw that she was walking forward, but not in the direction of going back. Go to the north of the city. Shen Yizi had already learned from Xia Zhangxiang that most of the people in the city who had contracted the disease had been moved to the isolation area in the north of the city to expand the scope of the immune disease again. In the quarantine area, Shen Yizi's mood became heavier the further he walked inside. The mess, dullness, and despair make this place seem like a dead place. Shen Yizi walked along, performing cleaning skills along the way, and asked Zhang Lingch to help him distribute food and water. Although she cannot cure them now, she can still create a clean environment for them so that they will not starve. Thank you, girl. The girl is such a good person. May the lake bless the girl. Girl, you'd better get out of here quickly, lest you get infected too. Shen Yizi received a lot of sincere gratitude along the way. Some people were unable to speak, but expressed their gratitude with their eyes. At a certain moment, a white figure appeared in front of us. The dust-free white was so conspicuous in this bleak isolation area. It is Zhong Wuki. He was holding a little girl and giving her medicine. A woman sat next to them and looked at them quietly, with a smile on her face covered with pustules. Perhaps sensing her gaze, Zhong Wuki looked over, gave her a faint smile, and continued to apply medicine to the little girl. Shen Yizi walked over and placed a portion of food and water in front of the woman. Eat. The woman was surprised at first, and then pleasantly surprised. After thanking her, she unwrapped the still warm paper bag. There were several white and large steamed buns inside. They were soft and hot, and just looking at them made people feel full and happy. Feel. Although it has only been 2 days since she came here, she feels like 2 lifetimes have passed. No one wants to get close to this place, and the food is left alone as soon as it is delivered to the entrance of the alley. However, there are so many people here that it is impossible to separate them. She is not strong enough to fight against those people. It doesn't matter to her, it just hurts her daughter. Just when she was desperate, Dr. Zhong came and treated them and gave them medicine without any objection. Now another girl came to bring food. There are still good people in this world. The woman tore off a small piece of steamed bun and fed it to her daughter, and gave her some water to drink. Shen Yizi and Zhong Wuki walked aside and asked him about the situation here. Zhong Wuki apparently also discovered the truth about the epidemic. He also came up with a very feasible treatment plan. I once visited a village where a man was bitten by a venomous snake. The village chief used leeches to help him out the poisonous blood. I was wondering if I could also use leeches to help the patient out the blood containing poisonous snakes. I was going to find some leeches to test, and here you are. Leech. Shen Yizi suddenly had an idea in his mind, no need to look for it, I have it right here. She had caught a lot of leeches before. Leeches were more ferocious than leeches, but at this moment, they could play a greater role. It's just that she hasn't cared about the leeches in the space since she arrived at Kunling Island. They should still be there, right? Shen Yizi's spiritual consciousness penetrated into the space and found that the big wooden barrel containing leeches in the laboratory was empty. There was only one solitary one left inside. But this one seems to have undergone some kind of mutation, and its body has become as crystal clear as jade. Coupled with its grass-green color, it looks like it is carved from the finest jade. There is also a faint golden line on the back. This leech has obviously evolved in the process of constantly devouring its own kind. Somewhat similar to the birth process of goo. Shen Yizi caught this leech and put a spiritual brand on it, so that he could completely control it and not be afraid that it would blood crazily. He also fed it a large amount of blood food, including a drop of dragon's blood. It can't absorb more than 1 drop, just 1 drop is enough. Sure enough, after absorbing the dragon's blood, the golden thread on the leech's back became more obvious. Shen Yizi could feel the closeness coming from the well-fed leech. They have developed their own consciousness. It seems that this leech has indeed evolved. She opened her palm and showed the leech to Zhong Wuqi. Let's go, let's try. The two came to the woman and explained the situation to her. The woman agreed without thinking. Anyway, how bad can she be now? If it can be cured by luck, it will save a life. Shen Yizi said warmly, if you are afraid, just close your eyes. The woman shook her head, it's okay, but she covered her daughter's eyes. Shen Yizi put the leech on her arm and controlled it to slowly blood. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 398. The pustule on the woman's arm slowly disappeared, which meant that the worms in her body were being sucked out by the leeches along with the blood. The woman's lips turned pale due to blood loss. Shen Yizi paused for a moment and sensed the situation inside her body. The goo insects quickly multiplied again and occupied her arm again. Shen Yizi frowned. If this was the case, there would be no way to get rid of all the poisonous insects in her body unless a drug that could inhibit the reproduction of the poisonous insects was developed. Then he sucked blood while giving her blood-boosting pills and Huiwen to replenish her lost blood. In this way, the total amount of voodoo worms in her body remained unchanged, but it continued to become thinner as the leeches sucked blood, and finally they could all be sucked out. But this is also a stupid method. It is easy to say at the beginning, but at the end, only a small part of the goo worms are left. Although this small part cannot reproduce, it will run around everywhere. It will be very difficult to accurately them out. Big. Can a drug be developed that can directly eliminate those bugs? Shen Yizi and Zhong Wuqi came to a temporarily packed hut and started discussing. All things are interdependent, and there must be something that can restrain this kind of poison. Unfortunately, we don't have much time left now. Zhong Wuqi looked at the scene outside the window, with a knot between his brows. How easy is it to find something to restrain this kind of poison? They don't even know the origin and characteristics of this kind of goo. Wait a minute, why did she forget the appraisal ball? Sweep those goo insects with the appraisal ball, and you will know what they are. At this moment, put aside the research spirit and solve this plague first. Shen Yizi went to the woman to get some blood. The color of the blood was not bright red, but a bit turbid gray, which was obviously caused by the massive reproduction of goo insects. She avoided Zhong Wuqi, exchanged it for an appraisal ball, and appraised the small ball of blood. The results show that this is a mass of blood invaded by ironclad worms. Iron-hided worms mostly host humans. Once they enter the human body, the eggs will quickly hatch and develop into enveloped cysts. The onset of the disease is accompanied by symptoms such as fever, itching, and dry throat. Iron cysts are afraid of high concentration alcohol and high temperatures. If you are accidentally infected with this insect, don't worry. Drink a large bowl of strong wine and soak your body in hot water. The worms will rush out of the human body and then crawl out of the body. Burned to death by hot water. Shen Yizi was overjoyed. He didn't expect the appraisal to be so powerful this time. Not only does it provide information on various aspects of the goo insect, it also shows the methods to restrain it. But this method is too simple, right? Just use high concentration wine and hot water. After thinking about it, although this method is simple, if she didn't explain it, Would she have been able to think of it? This is the case with many things. You will never know how simple it is unless you explain it. But before you know it, you can't think of it even if you rack your brains. Now that he knew the method, Shenyazi took action immediately. First, I found Zhonwuki. I suddenly remembered that I had seen a case in a medical book. A child had worms in his belly. The doctor gave him a cup of strong xiao. After drinking, the child killed the worms. I vomited it out. Why don't we try it with wine? Zhonwuki, that's fine. In any case, the treatment of the plague cannot be successful at one time. The methods are all summarized through continuous experiments, so there is no harm in trying. This time the two found another patient, a middle-aged man. He was lying lazily on the straw mat, basking in the sun, with a peaceful expression. He was not as painful and desperate as others, but instead exuded a salty fish smell of love so much. It seems as if life and death have been disregarded. Lao Zhou Zhonwuki called him, obviously he knew him. Lao Zhou opened one eye, and when he saw Shenyazi standing next to Zhonwuki, his eyes suddenly lit up. Is it possible that my soul has flown out of the sky and gone to the western paradise? Otherwise, how could I see such a beautiful fairy? Shenyazi. Among the depressed patients, this man is really a breath of fresh air. However, his eyes are pure, and he is not annoying at all. Stop it, we're here to do an experiment on you. Lao Zhou made a dull sound. Come to me to try the medicine again. It seems that Zhonwuki asked him to test medicine frequently before. Shenyazi smiled and handed over a bottle of wine. This time I am not asking you to test medicine, but I am inviting you to drink wine, which is 50 years old. 50 years is what she made up casually, but the wine in her space is buried in the soil, and 1 month can be worth the first 10 years outside, so it is not a lie to him. Obviously Lao Zhou is also a good drinker. He couldn't wait to take it and was about to uncork the bottle, but Shenyazi blocked it with one hand. Don't be too busy drinking now. Shenyazi led people to a small courtyard. Zhang Lingch had already cleaned up the place. There was a large bathtub in the room, which was filled with steaming hot water. Looking at the bucket of hot water, Lao Zhou felt itchy all over his body. Take off your clothes and go in. Shenyazi pointed to the barrel, told Zhonwuki a few words, turned around and walked out. Although there is no distinction between men and women in the eyes of doctors, now is not the time for surgery and needle insertion. It is just a bath. There is no need for her to watch here. And Zhang Lingch probably wouldn't allow it either. Zhonwuki was the only one left in the room. Lao Zhou was not afraid of being seen by a grown man like him, so he took off his clothes and jumped into the tub. The hot water made him shiver, but then he felt endlessly comfortable. Then he uncorked the wine bottle and took a big sip. Oh, how can you say refreshing? But soon he felt unhappy. He felt itchy all over his body, and something was moving very fast under his skin, as if it was trying to come out. He wanted to catch it, but Zhonwuki said seriously, don't move. Don't look either. It's a pity that it's too late. Lao Zhou felt horrified as he looked at the clusters of grey-white squirming objects coming out of his skin. What are these? The voice was trembling. Iron bagworms are not originally visible to the naked eye, but they gather in large numbers, making it difficult not to see them. This is the culprit of the epidemic. Close your eyes. Zhonwuki picked up the water ladle on the side, scooped up a large ladle of hot water and poured it on his head. All bugs that had been in contact with hot water were dead and floating in clumps on the water, which was both disgusting and terrifying. Lao Zhou felt like he was going crazy. He is not afraid of tigers or pythons, but he is only a little afraid of these little insects. Just thinking about the fact that these bugs came out of his body made him want to go back and recreate it all over again. Dr. Zhong, how long will it take? Lao Zhou asked tremblingly with his eyes closed. Hurry up, please bear with me a little longer. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 399. In the yard, Shen Yizi listened to these two conversations and couldn't help but think of some unhealthy things in his mind, and his face became a little weird. Zhang Lingch looked at her strangely. What's wrong? Nothing. Shen Yizi quickly straightened his expression. A quarter of an hour later, Zhong Wuqi and Lao Zhou walked out of the house one after another. All the pustules on Lao Zhou's face have disappeared. Although it still looks a bit shabby, it is much better than before. He bowed deeply to Shen Yizi and Zhong Wuqi. I won't thank you for your kindness. If you two can find me, Lao Zhou, in the future, just speak up. Shen Yizi, it's available now. I hope you can assist us in the next treatment. No problem. In the isolation area, treatment work is in full swing. Shen Yizi left this place to Zhong Wuqi and went to Xia Mansion himself. Taught Xia Zhengxiang the treatment method, demonstrated it to him personally, and then left. Subsequently, she came to the gate of the city lord's palace and asked to see the eldest son of Sima. The lord of Sima city was obsessed with cultivating immortals and spent most of his time in seclusion in a secret room. The affairs of the city were handed over to his eldest son, Sima Lin. Sima Lin lives up to his name. He is a handsome man as cold as ice. Because he was practicing ice-based exercises, there was an icy air lingering around his body. If possible, he would also like to ignore secular affairs and concentrate on cultivation, but his father does not allow him. However, there are policies above and countermeasures below. Dad entrusts the affairs of the city lord's palace to him, so he can also assign them to the people below, right? Several confidants are very good, and they have taken care of various affairs in the city. He only needs to ask occasionally. However, a plague broke out in the city recently, and he can no longer be the hands-off shopkeeper. Because all the famous doctors in the city were infected by Xia Yan, most of the remaining doctors are mediocre people. It is expected that they will come up with the antidote faster than in dreams. So he could only write a letter and ask for help from the nearest Yulin city. I just hope that the Lord of Yulin City can send a doctor out of past kindness. The waiting was very anxious, and he could not even practice the practice he loved before. At this time, the concierge came to report, there is a girl named Shen Yizhi Shen who wants to see her. She said she knows how to cure the epidemic. As soon as Sima Lin heard the name Shen Yizi, he couldn't sit still and went to the door in person to welcome Shen Yizi in. Little aunt, you have been gone for 4 years. My nephew misses you so much. After Sima Lin brought Shen Yizi to the hall, he waved the servants away and turned around to face her with tears in his eyes. Why do grown men cry? I've learned the tricks from your uncle. Shen Yizi knocked him on the forehead angrily. Sima Lin was not only not angry after being knocked on the head, but also looked happy to take advantage of him, which made Shen Yizi's eyes hurt. Speaking of which, why did Sima Lin call her little aunt? This has to start with the bad relationship between her and Sima Xiao. Because she was greedy for the delicacies made by Sima Xiao, she relied on him to become her godmother and they became brother and sister. After becoming one's own family, it becomes more logical to have a meal together. And Sima Lin is Sima Xiao's eldest nephew. After seeing how heroic she was, he did not hesitate to recognize her as little aunt in order to embrace her golden thigh. Even though Sima Lin looks like an iceberg beauty on the outside, in fact, if you peel off the outer shell, this guy is just a funny bastard, with a face as thick as a city wall. It's just that I can keep it under control and not many people see through it. Little aunt, I have missed you so much these past few years, and my heart often hurts when I think about you. Sima Lin held her chest and made a gesture of holding her heart. Shen Yizi Shi Shiren is sitting on the chair. If you pretend, I will see how long you can pretend. After acting for a while, seeing that Shenyazi never answered the question, Sima Lin couldn't continue acting. This one-man show is not easy to sing. Little aunt, what gift did you bring me this time? Sima Lin approached her and revealed his true purpose. Shenyazi raised his forehead, she knew it. Thrown a kinkan bag over. Little aunt, why did you give me a money bag? Sima Lin was very disappointed. He was in need of a money bag. Shenyazi rolled his eyes, this is the kinkan bag, a standard item for monks. It can hold a lot of things. In her eyes, most monks have no chance to see it, let alone own it. Is this the legendary kinkan bag? Sima Lin was full of surprise. He took the kinkan bag and looked over it over and over again, and then felt it with his spiritual consciousness. Ah, it's so spacious inside, I won't need to carry a big bag when I go out for training in the future, I can just carry it with me, it's such a good treasure. Sima Lin couldn't put it down, and under Shenyazi's instructions, he took the kinkan bag and confessed it to its owner. Okay, don't worry about playing around. I'm here to see you for something serious. Sima Lin put the kinkan bag close to his body, looked solemn, and sat upright, as if he was waiting for her instructions. Where is the majesty and courage of being an acting city lord? A complete piece of shit. Shenyazi set up a layer of sound insulation barrier around it. I suspect that this plague is man-made, and evidence has been found. What, man-made? Could it be that someone wants to remove their Sima family from the position of city lord? Sima Lin instantly came up with a 100,000-word conspiracy theory. Shenyazi told him what he had discovered and how he had cured the patients in the quarantine area. Although the epidemic has been resolved this time, there is no guarantee that the man will not attack again, so we must find him out this time. I am very sure of that. I have a way, you do what I say. Bang! A line of city guards walked into an alley, and the leader banged the gong in his hand. Master Healer is already on his way to Yufu City. He will arrive in the evening. The plague will be solved by then. I hope everyone knows it. Is it true? The demon doctor is really coming. Great, we are saved. The demon healer has superb medical skills and will definitely be able to cure the plague. Thousand Island Lake is Shenyazi's base camp. She has left countless legends here, and her reputation as a healer of demons is deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. Even though she disappeared for 4 years, everyone still remembers her. As soon as they heard that the demon doctor was coming, everyone seemed to have been given a shot in the arm and became full of hope. The city guards knocked while walking, making sure to let everyone know the news. Sima Lin, the city guard, sent out many teams, and soon the news that the demon healer is coming to solve the plague had spread throughout the city. East of the city, in an exquisite and quiet courtyard, Chao Fulan is kneeling behind the desk arranging flowers. Her movements are elegant and calm, not impatient, making those who look at her calm down. However, at a time when a plague broke out in the city, it was a bit inconsistent for her to be so leisurely and calm. Xiang Guo, how many days is it? She suddenly asked without thinking. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 400. The maid standing behind her said, it's the 3rd day, young master. It's only the 3rd day, so it seems we have to wait a while longer. Taking out the antidote at this time will not achieve the best effect. When he spoke, Zhao Fulan's face was compassionate and his voice was kind and gentle, but the content of his words made people think deeply. At this moment, there was an earth-shattering sound of a gong outside the yard, and Zhao Fulan was so shocked that she broke the flower branches in her hands. Then she heard the shouts of the city guards. Doctor, devil! Zhao Fulan clenched her fingers tightly, and the delicate petals were crushed and broken into pieces. She is very familiar with this person who has ruined the plans of the immortal medicine sect several times. This man is very mysterious. He is dressed in dust-free white robes and his face is covered with a silver white mask. No one knows whether he is a man or a woman, his age, and where he lives. It is as if he appeared out of thin air. The only thing I know is that he has superb medical skills and can bring the dead back to life. Because of him, the expansion plan of the immortal medicine sect has been delayed a lot. Unexpectedly, I bumped into him again this time. But this time, she will never let him pick peaches from her hands and step on her to gain the popularity and gratitude of the people. Zhao Fulan looked at the flower arrangement in front of her with dark eyes. Xiangguo, go to the city lord's palace to invite Sima Kuang and tell him that I have been working day and night for the past few days to find the antidote. Yes, slave, let's go now. Originally, the person Zhao Fulan really wanted to hook up with was the acting city lord Sima Lin. Unfortunately, Sima Lin was just a simpleton who only knew how to practice and had never left the city lord's mansion. If she came directly to the door, it would seem a bit deliberate. Fortunately, there is still Sima Kuang. As soon as Sima Kuang heard that Zhao Fulan had developed an antidote, it was a surprise, and he immediately followed Xiangguo to the small courtyard. Third young master, you are here. Zhao Fulan covered his mouth and coughed before he finished speaking. Xiangguo hurriedly stepped forward to support her. Seeing her haggard and pale face and thin figure, Sima Kuang couldn't help but feel distressed. Fulan, you have worked hard these days. Sit down quickly. He carefully helped Zhao Fulan sit down, as if she were fragile porcelain. Zhao Fulan frowned without a trace and resisted the urge to push him away. Fulan, where is the antidote? Sima Kuang asked while suppressing his excitement. Zhao Fulan took out a small porcelain bottle from his sleeve. Sima Kuang's eyes flashed. He did not pick it up. Instead, he held Zhao Fulan's shoulders and looked at her seriously. Fulan, thank you for everything you have done for me. With the antidote, this plague will be gone. Nothing. But what? Sima Kuang sighed. You also know that I am suppressed everywhere at home. I am called the young master of the city lord's mansion, but in fact my life is not as good as that of a more prosperous servant. He punched his fist bitterly. That's fine for me, but I can't let you suffer with me. Zhao Fulan. Why do you feel that his words are somewhat unclear? This time is an excellent opportunity. As long as you give me the prescription, I can use it to completely solve the plague and gain the love of the people in the city. If I do a little work, then the position of city lord will be mine. And you are the city lord's wife. Sima Kuang stared at her with bright eyes, and his nostrils tended to expand due to excitement. Zhao Fulan. When did she give him the illusion that she would marry him? Why did he think that he would give him the prescription he had hardly studied? Furthermore, if he wants to be the lord of the city, he should rely on his own ability to fight for it. How dare he rely on her? How arrogant and narcissistic this person is. Damn idiot. Zhao Fulan moved his fingers, feeling the urge to plant a poison on him. But thinking that he would be needed later, I held back. She lowered her eyes and said, I can give you the prescription. Sima Kuang was overjoyed. But then Zhao Fulan added, but to make the antidote, you still need a medicinal primer, and only I can provide this medicinal primer. Sima Kuang's face darkened. Fulan, you didn't want to give me the prescription and made it up deliberately, right? Zhao Fulan, damn. I can't continue acting. I really want to crush this ugly thing to death. Xiangguo stepped forward very considerately and complained, how can the third young master think like this? You know, in order to develop the antidote these days, our girl has spent all her sleep and food. Sima Kuang looked at Zhao Fulan, who was bowing his head, and said nothing, thinking that she was hurt by him, so he quickly admitted his mistake and said, Fulan, I'm sorry, I can't speak, don't bother with me. Seeing Zhao Fulan's face turn around, he asked, what is the medicine guide? Why are you the only one who can provide it? Ye Yin is the spiritual power in my body. Zhao Fulan tapped her finger lightly on the flower buds on the side, and the flower buds bloomed layer by layer, stunningly beautiful. Sima Kuang looked at the scene with envy and jealousy. Why couldn't he practice cultivation? But it doesn't matter, so what if he is immortal? Isn't Zhao Fulan, a monk and the young master of the immortal medicine sect, secretly devoted to him? The Penglay secret realm will be opened soon, and he will definitely get the supreme opportunity there and become an immortal in one fell swoop. In that case, I'll ask Fulan to work harder for you. When the plague is over, I will marry you. Zhao Fulan lowered his head and remained silent. Sima Kuang thought she was shy and felt that she was extremely charming. How did he know that Zhao Fulan was thinking about 18 ways to die in his mind? Well, these medicinal materials are for your trouble. Zhao Fulan handed him a list that had been prepared. Sima Kuang took it in a good mood and said, "No problem, I'll take care of it." Sima Kuang had a medicine shop under his name, so he quickly prepared all the medicinal materials Zhao Fulan needed. At the same time, Sima Lin also received news about his move to mobilize a large amount of medicinal materials. At the beginning of the afternoon, 3 o'clock, Sima Kuang and Zhao Fulan headed to the isolation area in the north of the city with a large number of prepared antidotes. However, when they stepped in, what they saw were not patients suffering from the disease, but a large number of city guards wearing soft armor and holding weapons. The city guards surrounded several people inside. Zhao Fulan's heart sank. Sima Kuang was horrified and his color changed. Sima Lin stepped out from the crowd and gave an order, "Take it down." "Brother, what do you mean?" Sima Kuang tried to break away the two hands holding his shoulders. Sima Lin sneered, "What do you mean? You teamed up with this vicious female liar who claimed to be the young master of the immortal medicine sect to poison the people in the city. When the situation became urgent, you came out with the so-called antidote and tried to gain the love of the people as a savior so that he can usurp the position of city lord. For the sake of being the lord of the city, you actually put the lives of the people in the city at risk. Your methods are vicious and frightening." After reprimanding him, he changed to a sad tone, "It's all my fault that I, the eldest brother, didn't teach you well, so that you made such a big mistake.